Okay, it's a little bit late, very late. We have about an hour and 13 minutes. But anyway, this is Chief Crow and Flat Earthworms, Auto Hoax, and I'm going to be putting, as you may have noticed, links to everything that I mention, including the songs, in the show notes when you get the archives, thanks to the help of AI. So what I do is I take the transcripts, I throw it into Perplexity, and I say, take this transcript, summarize it, take a pull quote from every major topic, and then give me links. And I put that in the last archive. If you received it, you might have noticed it. And so it's not a full transcript, it's just a breakdown, and it does have links. And this time I'll ask it to include timestamps, but it's a nice addition. And if you have questions about music or links or articles, it'll all be there. I think it's important to provide receipts, and we are providing receipts for our claims going back as far as we can discern. One of the big developments of the last week has been the Auto Hoax Wiki, a project that we've talked about for a long time. We've attempted once, and it was overrun by Russian bots, and we didn't have the manpower. But now we don't need it. We have AI. And anyone who wants to join in is welcome to. I am going to be doing a tutorial video for those who want to get involved in the project of retro auto hoaxing, the 20th century. I would have been here 8 hours ago, but someone in chat gave me the idea to do an adult coloring book on auto hoaxing. And so I thought that's kind of a good idea, because what we have here is a perfect way to express the idea of skepticism and ataraxia at the same time, which is the peace of mind achieved from suspending judgment. So while everyone else is running amok, terrified, fighting over toilet paper, you'll just be coloring in the coloring book. It's called Auto Hoax It Meditations on Media Fakery. And I realized that every other page was blank because, it's a coloring book. And if you have a picture on both sides, it kind of makes it where you have to choose which one you like better if you want to display it. So I have a blank between each one. And a couple hours ago, before I was about to publish it, and I realized I could put a quote on each of these pages. And so I went to go find quotes from people like Edward Bernays, Marshall McLuhan, Professor Oblivion from Videodrome, Cronenberg, and many others. And so every page has adjacent to it a quote. And I put some examples because it's on Amazon. It's going to take them 3 days to approve it. But in the meantime, you are welcome to go to the shop and get a copy of the PDF at a fraction of the price of the print version. And you can see some examples. And I'm working on this, I have been working on this all day, and I've been posting examples. So people wonder, how did you get the AI to create this? Did you tell it to put Stanley Kubrick in front of the Twin Towers calling in a demo with bat-shaped holes? Like, how did you get them to do it? Because if you type in fire and building, it'll block you. Well, there's a method to it. And it's all about layering. But I think you'll appreciate the quotes. And so here are just a few examples. The television screen has become the retina of the mind's eye. And that's Professor Oblivion. He also said, whatever appears on the television screen emerges as raw experience for those who watch it. Therefore, television is reality. And reality is less than television. I know I got Christoph. I didn't do anyone from Newsbenders. Edward Bernays, if we understand the mechanism and motives of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without them knowing it. Which is true. But it's called, again, Auto Hoax It Meditations on Media Fakery, an adult coloring book. And you'll be the first to know when it's available. They say 3 days. I think it'll be ready by tomorrow. Although the PDF is available if you can print your own pages. And you can get it for $1. I could probably just do it free. Really, to me, it's about really the Amazon one. That's the one that I think will go to the most number of people. I mean, we're just a small enclave here, think tank, and it's not an echo chamber. Doors are open, but we don't have the greatest of reach yet. And so I thought, well, coloring books make a perfect foray into like this commercial area where ideology doesn't really block access. I couldn't access these or put these ideas. I mean, this is a mind virus vector that we haven't tried yet. All right, we are joined by Jungle Jim, Roxy, Kevin Mooring, Nat Cole, Ears Up, Greg R. Now, who was it that said do a coloring book? It was on yesterday's live stream, I'm pretty sure. It's like once I got started, I kind of got me thinking about other ways to use this to get back into publishing. But AI has been really a godsend or a devil send. I mean, so many people have just demonized it. They think it's the devil. In fact, I was listening to a conversation between the Awake Souls and Mark Sargent. And I watched about 90% of it. It was pretty good. It was informative. And just coincidentally, I was writing down a list of what I call truther cliches, things like the 100th monkey syndrome and the double slit experiment. And not surprisingly, both of these things were invoked, along with the Mandela effect. So Sargent is in a VR model, and I'm not critical of it. I don't care. His enclosed system, virtual reality, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot of overlap. So now they're all kind of kumbaya. Awake Souls, they used to call Mark Sargent a Satanist and a Fed. And now they're like, he's one of us. Although they are biblical. And they don't really stress this as much, but they used to talk a lot more about their God. The lightning God, I think. Whatever. I'm not going to mispronounce it. I don't want to incur his wrath. But I will say that I did appreciate the thorough, I think, explanation of how he really sees things. So one of the things that Mark Sargent talked about was the forest, where if the tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, obviously. I mean, sound is it's going to be there regardless of whether human eardrums are there to pick it up. It's not all that really deep of a conundrum if you actually think about it and you understand the mechanism of sound. But in his view, and this is fascinating, it doesn't make a sound because the tree's not there, because if no one is there to perceive it, it hasn't been rendered yet. So his virtual reality model is very biocentric. So it's not 100% that foreign to me as far as the concept. Like this place was made for us. These guys also believe that everything is made of pixels, and I think that's something that Plato talked about. Everything being fundamentally made out of cubes, tiny cubes. Like we live on Minecraft, which is why the curve thing's kind of problematic. But I don't think that the virtual reality model is incompatible with the globe whatsoever. But what I would say is that they are both model earthers, like ball Earth, flat Earth, virtual reality Earth, hollow Earth, crater Earth. If you have a model, you have a construct that you've accepted, and this is your foundation. And what separates them from us is, of course, the acceptance of a model. And I don't think, philosophically speaking, practically speaking, there's any difference between being a flat earther, a virtual reality Earth person, or a glober. I think they're all wrong. All right, let's see here. Esteban, thanks for joining. Flat Bob, why do you only have 113? Yeah, I have a sort of an Uber gig at midnight. Yeah, at midnight everything changes. Turns out that the studio is really just a cardboard box in an alley. No, I'm just kidding. It's like Cinderella at midnight and everything just dissipates the illusion. No, I have an Uber gig. Otherwise, I would stick around all night. I would have started earlier, but I was busy with the coloring book. And I think it's worth it, though. And it's not really about the money, although publishing is a good source of residual income. And I do plan on putting these coloring book pages inside of the tabloid. So it's like The tabloid would also have one or two pages from this, and then it'll have a link for people to buy. And one of the things I'm going to do consistently is integrate everything else we're doing with the print tabloid through mainly QR codes. The next issue is in the works, and if anyone has anything to submit, it's open. I'm definitely doing a deep dive into the dead cat in Illinois. I think it's a cat doe, but we're trying to figure this out because that story keeps evolving. It turns out that Hunter Biden claimed to be broke because nobody's buying his art, and he's staying at some resort in Africa. $500 a night, Secret Service protection, and he dropped the lawsuit against Marco Polo. And now they're going to try to recoup $250K in legal fees, legal expenses, which they may get. And I think it was with prejudice, meaning it can't be refiled. And he claims it's because he's broke. And they're kind of questioning, well, was he broke if he's on vacation? But the real reason he likely dismissed the case is he didn't want to be depositioned. I'm not sure what, I mean, to be honest, who cares about Hunter Biden in 2025? What kind of a win is it, and for whom? If this laptop expose continues to get traction, like they're trying to scandalize the son of a former president months after it could even be useful politically. So now it's just kind of mean-spirited. But their crusade costed them $250K, and they're kind of mad that the whole case got rug pulled. Although I think these individuals are still being investigated for computer hacking. But this is of interest to us because the group that we're talking about is a group that contains someone relevant to this channel. One of our, really the nemesis of the IPS. And you'll notice that he's been relatively dormant since 2023. And of course, the reason why is because any association with us is essentially career suicide for him. New Perspective Anti-Model. Look, the Infinite Plane Society from day one was no model. I'm like, if we can't accept the ball, we don't have enough information to jump to the next thing. We don't have enough information to conclude anything. You know, it's all pending further research. So I said, in contrast to the default Flat Earth Society with their terrible model, let's just say infinite plane. Infinite until proven otherwise. And by not adopting a model, we didn't get caught up in any kind of traps, the identity politics of Bible Flat Earth. We didn't get stuck with conferences and their little VIP culture where they try to create this like elite group within. They try to monopolize this as a almost like a, they turned it almost into a cult. I mean, I guess it could be considered a cult in a way. I mean, ask Jaronism. I think it was pretty culty the way they kind of turned on him, but he kind of, I don't know. He could have handled it better. But again, we were never about a model. I always said that the model thumpers were wrong. And this includes any shape because it was always about open versus closed. And I think we've been vindicated. So I was listening to the Mark Sargent and Awake's show, Souls live stream, because I was just curious to see where is he at now? Because you can't have the domed Flat Earth Society. The Flat Earth Society's done. The Flat Earth Society presupposes a pizza dish under a dome with a single rotating sun, vertical acceleration at 32 feet per second. Or 32 feet per second. So that ridiculous model is done. The Flat Earth Society should just shut down their website. They have been discredited, finally, at last. But media skeptics, even so far as being skeptical of cosmology, insofar as it's been fed to us through media, have not been discredited whatsoever. 33 years old says, have you ever discussed the issue of gang stalking? Seems some of this community make themselves as target of individuals. Don't know why. Yeah, I've talked about gang stalking a bit, and one of the things I've talked about is Scientology gang stalking. The Masonic cult, background checks, gang stalking, and the other affiliated groups. There's definitely a thing with cults And I think it's part of the, I guess, implanting of subconscious dread should you cross the cult. But am I targeted? I'm pretty sure I'm on a few lists. I mean, we do have a White House connected computer hacker, the one who hacked Hunter Biden's laptop. He was the one shutting down our channel from 2017 to 2022. Really, 2021. I mean, it was really concentrated until he got busy with Trump. New Perspective says infinite till proven otherwise is the most intellectually sound position, even with the barrier what's beyond. Well, here's the thing, too. Because of space fakery, you cannot say that the Earth is the ball Earth model is complete. Same with Bible Earth. If you can't tell me what's beyond the dome, then I'm not buying it. That's what I said then. Until you can tell me what's beyond the dome, until you can bring back a chunk of dome glass, I'm rejecting it. I'm not going to take it on faith. And it's the same with the ball. Until you can tell me what's in space and not try to convey it to me through composite images, artistic renderings, or CGI crap, I don't have to accept the ball as a complete model. I certainly don't accept the versions of the world we've been shown from so-called space as real. So the only sound position is we don't have enough information to know. But just because you don't have enough information to know what the real one is doesn't mean you have to default to the ball. So the whole point of the flat earth controlled opposition community was to maintain the either or fallacy, this false dichotomy. It's flat or round, flat or round. And they've been running circles around that for years. And I said from the beginning, it's not about shape. I'm a shape agnostic. I'm shape ambivalent. It's ultimately about open versus closed systems of information. And so they maintained that debate within the closed circle of information that didn't include special effects and media fakery. So they maintained a controlled conversation. And I understand why, why the opposition would do it, because the flat Earth conspiracy got really big. Big tent, big umbrella, brought a lot of people in, and now they're totally skeptical. And if that were to merge with media fakery analysis, it would be too many people, too many skeptics, too many people rejecting the screen at face value. It would be a tsunami of auto hoaxers, and they didn't want that to happen. They don't want it to happen. And the flat Earth was a perfect propaganda vector to target the right minds with the right idea at the right time. Because if you can say to yourself comfortably that, yeah, I can accept that government lies and they faked the moon landing, then it's intellectually, I think, within reach to also accept and stand by the notion that they might even fake, I don't know, school shootings, terror attacks. It's kind of within the same scope of skepticism towards media. It's the same production company. And one of my positions as of late is that the military-industrial complex is a hoax because nukes are fake. So many other things are as well, but that in particular. And I think the real thing is the PSYOP entertainment complex. The military-industrial complex is something of a creation of the Psy-War. Okay, let's continue here. We are going to do a little update on this President Hulk thing. So if you recall the other day, I noted some kind of a pattern. Now, I haven't seen Mickey 17, but I looked into it because I noticed this pattern here. I saw in the trailer the main character with a hoodie looking like Luigi. So I thought there might be something in it. Well, it turns out that the main villain, Kenneth Marshall, is based on Donald Trump. So that's one thing, based on Donald Trump. But then two, he gets shot at after talking about colonizing a white-only planet. And it grazes his face. So there you have a mirror. And this was before what happened with Trump. So this is like, I don't know, prophecy, prophetic. Or it's propaganda and it's scripted to correlate with the PSYOP of the fake shooting. But so you have this connection here now between Mark Ruffalo's character and Trump and the xenophobic speech that preceded the assassination attempt. So that you have this connection. So I look into it deeper, and I remember Mark Ruffalo played the Incredible Hulk. So immediately I start thinking about how in Captain America Brave New World, the president is shot at while he's at the podium in a theater, and it's Harrison Ford. So this stood out to me for a few reasons. One, that trailer came out a day before Trump was shot at. Captain America Brave New World alternate trailer removes assassination attempt. So they changed it because of this. But this would mean that Harrison Ford therefore represents Trump, if you look at the parallels between entertainment and news, as we do here. So interestingly enough, Donald Trump or Harrison Ford, the president, becomes Red Hulk. So Red Hulk, Green Hulk, president, shot at, and the president in real life shot at the same time this trailer came out. So then one step further, after Trump was shot at, who spoke at the RNC but Hulk Hogan? So you have Hulk, and Hulk. And Hulk Hogan with the fake blood on the ear, well, fake blood, talking about being on TV, Hulkamania, and how it looked like Trump up there bleeding, and his signature gesture touching his ear. So we've talked about all of this. This was brought up yesterday. So I look into Mark Ruffalo thinking, what would JL do? If I was Jurassic Liars, what would I do? I would look up the birth date. Because the other day, I had noted that Donald Trump was the basis, according to the director, in Mario Brothers, think about this, for King Koopa. So we got Luigi, we got Wario, as in Elon Musk, we got King Koopa, the CEO, the president, it all ties in here. But I'm thinking, wait, if Donald Trump was the basis for King Koopa, played by Dennis Hopper, and in that, the Twin Towers are vaporized, and they're called the Koopa Towers. So they connect Trump to the Twin Towers. So I'm thinking, okay, wait, if Trump is the basis for King Koopa, there's got to be a connection with the actor Dennis Hopper. So Dennis Hopper happens to have the death date of JFK's birthday, which is significant as he plays Trump, and there's a JFK connection. The shooter of Reagan had JFK's birthday, and he was the basis or he was inspired by Travis Bickle, played by De Niro, who's the basis for the Joker. So you can see this overlapping as we get into the Joker and the Trump connections with the Joker and the Batman, the Gotham universe. But anyway, these are not coincidental. So I look into this, and it turns out that Mark Ruffalo is born on 11/22, JFK's death day. So we have the death day and the birthday of the assassinated president associated with Trump proxies in media who face assassination attempts that are put out there coinciding with the real event. And then the Hulk connection. So anyway, so just to add to it, Hulk connections, what's going on here? Mark Ruffalo born on 11/22, and then Dennis Hopper 5/29. Something's up with that. Now I have a few more notes on Ruffalo because we've done some more research into the matter. Oh, okay, so Jurassic Liar said, I also showed Mark Ruffalo in a video last year. He was at William Dafoe's celebration of getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on Elvis's birthday. Okay. Mark, on that day, he mentioned Ruffalo was born on JFK's death date, and Dafoe played a vampire named Elvis in the movie Daybreakers that was released on Elvis's birthday. Yeah, Daybreakers is chock full of predictive programming for 2020. It came out in 2009. It even has a poster at the beginning. It all started with the bat, and it's about the world locking down because of a bat virus, which is really something that started with I Am Legend, the basis for like Night of the Living Dead, and Last Man on Earth. But I Am Legend, Richard Matheson. It's a vampire plague, not zombies, but it's kind of the same idea. And what it all comes down to is he's the last man on Earth, so he locks down in his house. and during the daylight he hunts the vampires. And at night they come for him, and it's just a ongoing story. But he attains the legendary status to the vampires that Dracula has among humans, because he was just known for killing them in mass and burning them in a big pit. It's a good book, but it kind of reminds me that it's always been the whole zombie genre has always been about lockdown. It's always been about quarantine, and I think the predictive programming for the 2020 thing was a lot of it was largely contained in all the zombie movies that were huge leading up to it. Now, Elon Musk has said a couple of things in the last few days, and it makes me wonder if they're trying to diffuse what we're talking about. Because one of the things we talk about often is the scripted nature of everything. Not just the scripted nature of it, but the fact that these are actors on the world stage. Principally people like Trump and Musk. So Elon Musk comes out and he says, worst puppet show ever. He mocks the Democrats for showing an identical video targeting Trump. So there's a, quote, coincidence of 22 senators sharing an identical video. And they're all on TikTok doing the same thing. So here we are. I was talking about puppets, and then those puppets have strings that are pulling puppets, and it's just the puppets all the way down. And now Musk is definitely saying that the other side is puppets. But this is their thing. They'll say the other side is fake. The other side is puppets. The other side is scripted. But our side is real. That's why you have to be anti-anti. You can't accept a model. I'm going to take the left-wing model. I'm going to take the right-wing alternative model. Nope, you got to be model-free, off-world stage, which is surrounded by questions, question marks. But it's better to have questions than false explanations that de-incentivize curiosity and continued research. So in a way, you could look at the world stage, internal model of the world, and the globe model as parallels. Do you believe in the globe? Do you believe in the world stage? Well, should you? Well, no. You should know it. You shouldn't believe it. When it comes to journalism, do you believe the news, or do you know it to be true? Most people are just believers, and they're low info believers at that. Conspiracy theorists are low info disbelievers. Doesn't take much to tell them that for them to say they don't believe something, but that's not good enough. After the Trump shooting, someone had said it looked fake to me, and I'm like, well, no, it looked real to me. Like, how can you say visually that it looked fake? It was a perfectly executed magic trick. Misdirection, had everybody looking at the sign, everyone's looking, and then he does the ketchup thing, jumps on the ground. It was a perfect trick. You couldn't have said it looks fake. That's an opinion. It's subjective, and we're not subjectivists here. The world stage is subjectivity. Left wing, right wing, conspiracy theorists, it's all subjective. We're the only enclave of objectivists, because the objectivist society has filtered its perceptions to the TV, the screen. As I alluded to earlier, we're talking about the David Cronenberg quote from Videodrome. And this is, again, my, if you go to inciter.shop, we have the coloring book that somebody suggested that I do. And I put a bunch of quotes in here about this whole problem of people filtering their perceptions through media. And we have solutions here. We have a big solution, actually. Something coming. But anyway, Meditations on Media Fakery. I'll put a link below. The television screen has become the retina of the mind's eye. Professor Oblivion. I'm going to go back and watch that again. But, we're talking about models. And it's like, I was never a believer in I was a believer in the world stage. What I'm saying is I was never a believer in the truth reveal. The adrenochrome, Q, chemtrails. I recognize that there's all these alternative beliefs and this knee-jerk rejection of the mainstream, but I was critical of the critics of mainstream. And eventually it became clear that alt media is controlled alt media, always has been. And that's not going to change. There are zero exceptions. Doesn't matter what your intentions are. If you don't know that you're controlled opposition, you're either a puppet or a propaganda mule. Marcel has joined us from the Netherlands. Cold AF at the moment. Thank you for joining. Marcel brought 5 blue titanium wrenches, Tominoid 3, Virtual Reality Witness, Auto SAD, Truth Detective, Crazy Man, Lasers have all received the blue wrench. Let's see. New Perspective says outer pond speculations aren't needed but unavoidable. There's definitely outer ponders until proven otherwise. No, you can't really say it. Like, the burden of proof is on the person making the extraordinary claim. There aren't aliens until aliens are debunked. No, aliens don't exist. That's why I can confidently say anybody who claims they saw the ISS, like across the night sky, saw an airplane. You didn't see a drone. You didn't see a space station, a spaceship, or a UFO. You saw a plane. And I said this when the drone hysteria kicked off in New Jersey, and I was right, that it was all just hype. And you can actually correlate all those fake drone sightings or alleged drone sightings with planes. And I think the same could be said for the ISS thing. So if something hasn't been demonstrated to exist, it doesn't get to be included in the list of possibilities. It's not in the realm of possibilities. And some people will say, well, everything's possible. No, not really. Not if you want to be reasonable. Not really. You have to have standards of evidence. You have to have critical thinking in place. Because if you can accept absurd propositions like landing on the moon, for example, then what couldn't you be convinced of? Thrustazar says no Sataloons. No, nobody can even claim, okay, I saw a Sataloon. Can't say that. Because the Sataloons, which Loon X, for example, could conceivably be performing all the work that satellites are supposedly performing, but Sataloons don't orbit. You wouldn't see them as lights in the night sky. And that's another thing. A lot of people used to claim that they would see the space station flying over their house over and over at night. And I would get them to confirm this, and then I would bring up the problem of how do you explain an object in low Earth orbit being visible after sunset, given that the shadow of the Earth goes out for 870,000 miles. So it's in the darkest part of the Earth's shadow when it's over your head. There's no way the sun could be shining on it because of the angle to light it up. So if you're claiming that you're seeing satellites at night, you're not. And maybe you just haven't cross-referenced it. But you don't bring in the assumption it could be a UFO. And I think at this point, you can rule out the assumption of space stations, spaceships, and satellites. And then, some will say, well, maybe it's balloons. No, balloons would not be. They would be stationary. How can we assume it has an end? I mean, that's a good question. I mean, what's at the edge of the universe? People mock the model of flat Earth, and it's like, what's at the edge of the Earth? But that's a valid question, and it should be easy to answer. But if you were to ask them what's at the edge of the universe, well, it's not as ludicrous a question because there's no way we could know because we can't get out there. But both of them are admitting incompleteness. But my job here isn't building a metaphysical model necessarily, because I think that before you can do that, you have to be oriented in, mentally. I think you have to have some sort of cognitive harmony between your interpretation and what is. And the level of, I think, disparity between real and augmented reality is just a matter of how much you have accepted on faith. Like, think about someone who's in a cult that believes in, like a channeling cult or something. They believe a lot of things that we know aren't real, and these things inform their worldview. So they live in a delusional state. And they're not fact checking, they're not validating any of the things that they're supposed to believe. And the less they validate, the more they veer away from objective reality. And it's very obvious to people who aren't in the cult that these people are in one. like they're in another world. And it's easy to lose sight of the fact that we're in a cult right now that constitutes billions. Think Scientology, but much bigger, NASAtology. And we are in a cult. And what defines a cult or a religion really is that they have a complete model. Like, this is the world. This is how it started. This is how it ends. This is our place in it. That's what religions are. It's a model of reality for you to accept. And I put the Ball Earth and the Church of Media in the same category. They're presenting you with a interpretation. But I don't think it's useful right now at this point to engage in speculation in this field, because we're the ones, I think, the standard bearers for what might be considered an objective analysis of media, because we are in fact SciWar aware and we know what predictive programming is. A lot of people habitually have went from, oh, news is fake, so let me start questioning reality. And I think that's an intelligence agency operation to mystify the news and to take people who are looking critically at something and turn them into subjectivists. Because I've seen this endlessly. That's been my main criticism of the synchro mystics and the Mandela effects and virtual reality stuff. It's like, hey, that's great that you believe it. I'm happy for you. You're a virtual reality person. You're a Bible earther. You're a simulationist. You're a whatever-ist. You got the model, but to me, you're basically another version of the globe from my perspective. Because a lot of the people who are believing this is a virtual reality and stuff still believe that the news is objective and real. I mean, I'm not trying to name names, but since we're talking about it, Mark Sargent believes we're in a virtual reality. But he does believe people die in psyops. So it gets to me, it gets to be kind of interesting. It's like, well, why is the proposition that the news is fake more extreme and harder to believe than the idea that we live in a video game? You see, and so I think we get into putting a model before the facts in front of us. And these are all dead ends anyway. The people who concluded that coincidences between video games, books, and movies and real life are the result of a higher power simulation, for example. The people who believe that never went any further. They don't go any further. They've accepted it. That they have found evidence of a higher power. That's all the answers they need. They've seen through the matrix. And I'm calling this a false awakening. What I'm saying is that we have conclusively demonstrated time and again the patterned and intentional synchronization between all government co-opted media and future fake news events. Keyword here being fake. It's formulaic, it's systemic, it's structural, and it's never going to change. And not only that, but it's global in scale. It's monolithic. There is nothing outside of it. We do live in a closed system of information. That's why I said the main question here is open or closed. The main question is open or closed systems. And every model assumes itself to be closed, meaning finished. Like Bible Earth. Oh, we got the answers. It's a video game. We got the answer. It's a globe. We got the answer. Well, none of you can tell me what's at the edge of your model. It's premature. Braveheart says MK Ultra reality is a normie take. It's also a misunderstanding. I mean, MK Ultra, for all intents and purposes, is real. But I would define it more as the trauma-induced mind control. And it has to do with the trauma bond inherent in the emotional entanglement with the media-verse. The addictive quality to media, the doom scrolling. That's all addiction. It's all a bond. And it's a bond because of, by trauma bond, it means intermittent reward and then lots of punishments or devaluation and gaslighting. And it goes back and forth. But let's see here. Joe Santos says, you can debunk simulation because people miss each other when people die, I think. Yeah, it's kind of a lazy non-explanation, and it's a malappropriation of scientific terminology. Like the double slit experiment isn't what New Agers say. The virtual reality people think the double slit experiment proved that we are co-creating reality and that our observation affects things. Schrodinger's cat, they have these paradoxes. 100th monkey syndrome. They were talking about the 100th rat syndrome. The idea of like a mass mind, collective minds. I mean, these are interesting ideas, but these are all based on hoaxes. I even came across something suggesting the Milgram experiment was even a hoax. So it's important to look at these cliches and recognize them for what they are. And a lot of these cliches, like the double slit experiment, like, oh, look, now this proves the Mandela effect. Well, no, the Mandela effect is actually a consequence of being gaslit and being fed a loaded question, an either or fallacy, and then having your recollection merged with an imagined version of it, the creation of a false memory. But what's interesting about this one is that religions have always had false promises and fake miracles. There haven't been any real miracles. I mean, unless I'm wrong, prove me wrong. But the modern religion of simulation theory doesn't have a lot of evidence until the Mandela effect, until predictive programming. And I don't think that's a coincidence. The idea of predictive programming being caused by a simulation is the perfect misdirection line. It's like, oh, look, you got this demographic of people who are seeing how deep propaganda actually is, how intrinsic it is to our worldview and how unified it is. They're seeing it. How do we stop them? Tell them they're actually seeing through the matrix. The news is fake, therefore reality's fake because the news is real. That's their flaw. They think the news is real. They're seeing glitches that couldn't exist. For example, the coincidences. All those eerie coincidences. And I've heard some wild explanations, and I've delved into this, like, well, maybe they put the things in movies so that all the people watching it visualize it, and the law of attraction makes it happen. So it's like there are mystic explanations for it that take out of the equation the true culprits. And they don't want the culprits known. They want you to look at the low-hanging fruit of grinning crisis actors, but they don't want you to think about the fact that the existence of actors in presupposes the existence of directors, writers, and a whole cast, a whole crew. The conspiracy is so big that nobody can see it. It really is a forest and tree thing. These people they're driving circles, running circles around trees, like one or two trees that are approved conspiracy theories. Yeah, you could run laps around 9/11 with Candace Owens in 2025 and ask basic questions, or chase the second shooter around that fake tree. And fake tree after fake tree, you're getting grifted and milked and propagandized by alt media, which is all controlled. And nobody tells you that the entire forest is fake. And that's what's important here. PSYOPs are easy to spot. Everybody can see a PSYOP. But not everybody can see the PSY-WAR. They can't see the broader context. The only ones who have the broader context are those who have figured it out. It's called the off-world stage perspective. We've stepped outside of their closed system of information. This is the mental equivalent of going outside of the parameters of the globe or flat Earth map. We're going into the terrain that shouldn't exist. It's outside of their model. Let's see here. Joined again by Richard Jones. Thanks for joining. Marcel says, as color, vibration, sound, sight, water, food, who knows what other influences how we see the world. I wonder what else can be manipulated. Yeah, that's a valid question. But I think we have the answer. I think it's pretty clear that we're looking at a worldview monopoly, a religion. I call it Nasatology jokingly, but it's actually an apt description. I'm not a Nasatologist. If you didn't exit the Church of Nasatology, since you were born into it, you were educated into it, indoctrinated into it, it is the default. If you didn't consciously and of your own volition step out of it, you are a de facto nasatologist. Okay, let's move on. We had some more research here. Now, if we didn't have a point, if we weren't correct, we would not have arrived at this large body of information by finding things through predictions. Like I looked at Mark Ruffalo, and when I found out through my AI deep dive with Perplexity that he was said to have represented Trump, I thought that's a big deal. And then he has Kennedy's birthday. Then I find out that he gets grazed by a bullet. Then I found out that the movie is all anti-MAGA. It's like this is something I arrived at because I saw the Hulk thing. So the Hulk thing can't be disconnected from this either. So it has to do with archetypes and how certain actors or certain archetypes are being like concerted messaging. Like the rage virus, the rage monkey, we talked about that last year. But the Hulk thing had been standing out, and it perfectly correlates with the Hulk Hogan thing. Now, what does it all mean? Well, I don't know. Let's look at this. Synchromorphia said Ruffalo was 33 at the time when he found out he had a tumor behind his ear. I'm completely deaf in one ear, he said. The left side of my face was paralyzed. I couldn't close my eye. I was talking out of the side of my mouth. So do you see the connection here? Mark Ruffalo had, in the movie, portrayed the role of Trump, gets grazed by a bullet, Trump shot in the ear, and the actor at the age of 33 had a tumor in his ear. I mean, these are probably storylines that are planted, but these are consistent with what we see here. Like these interesting tidbits here. From Kenosha as well. It says his brother was, no, I don't know. His brother was shot in the head. Very dark story, if true. But I'm looking into it. I'm just looking for the bigger picture here. I put this tweet out the other day. Did Stanley Kubrick direct 9/11? And I did a breakdown on XWiki. A lot of these things that we talk about frequently, like these obscure articles, these breakdowns, like of this one of The Shining, I'm putting them all into our wiki. I think it's important that we have our own timeline, our own research that doesn't get deleted, and multiple redundancies. But one of the things I'm doing is I'm taking screen caps of these articles and putting a link and then posting it. And the article I did about Bill Hicks and Alex Jones, and I haven't even added yet the stuff about Mancow, but it's one of my more popular tweets. Okay, let's see here. Tominoid says there might be outside of this place, but no one has seen it. See, I don't agree with that. If we're in like for example, the public doesn't know what's behind the fake news, but the fake newsmakers do. The programming class does. It's privileged information. So as far as what's outside of the model, if the model is false, what's outside of it is known. And there's a conspiracy to hide it from us. Could be Atlantis. I mean, I have a list of movies that I'm putting up on my site here, required watching. So in The Village, you have the group of people who are raised in a commune, and it looks like it's the 17th century. I mean, they're just happy in their commune, an agrarian lifestyle, and they don't know it's the 20th century. Because their elders, the name elders is interesting, the elders terrorize them with these monster costumes, make them think that there's monsters in the woods, so they never leave. If they knew the truth, they could all just walk out, and they would be in the 20th century. But they're happy, and they don't know. So I'm just saying, we could be hypothetically, if this is true, if the model we've been given is false, then the controllers are very sophisticated, and they're likely ahead of us. I don't know how far ahead. I don't really care to speculate that much. I mean, I'm underwhelmed by their special effects and the fact that we've caught on this much, so I can't imagine it being that much, but they could be hiding something. And what would you want to hide? I mean, if you look at the fact that fake news leads the news, becomes history, therefore our history is bent, then we shouldn't trust them on cartography. And if anything, the only logical incentive for a false model is to create a monopoly on everything. So we're looking at a worldview monopoly. That's what we're challenging every day here. Even recognizing that there is one is kind of cutting edge. But resources, think about it. You are able to not only monopolize whatever isn't on the map, but now you introduce scarcity, a scarcity model. Oh, you guys are running out of oil, pay us. They have these ways to manipulate the scarcity model. They turn the world into the Hunger Games. And if you look at these movies, like the Hunger Games in particular, where the masses are manipulated by this elite class, you often see the world as like a table and they're gathered around it. And it makes me think sometimes, like, people would point at the UN flag. It's like, this is the world, but it's got 33 chambers. It's a flat earth map. It doesn't have to be, but it could represent the area under control, under quarantine. And when they start mining asteroids, or when they start, for example, Mars, it could be the fact that it could be the case that the Mars bases are going to be accessed through the Hyperloop. So you're going to Mars, it's only going to take you half an hour, and it's going to feel like you're going through a wormhole, like Space Mountain in Disneyland or something, which all ties into this if you look at Von Braun's connection to Disney, and then Musk and the Hyperloop. But you could Hyperloop people to another continent. And someone said to me, and I haven't watched it yet, they said the new Blade Runner, no, the new the new Total Recall doesn't have Mars as the destination, but it's like Antarctica, but it's accessed through some kind of a tunnel. I have to look into this. But what I'm saying is that if there's more land, it could be Mars. Mars is maybe what they're hiding. It's genius, actually. You take an entire segment of, let's say, even if it's a globe, you take the entire section of it off the map, give them a false model, and then you sell them expensive rides and you monopolize migration to this new land. And there was that thing. It was Lewis Carroll talked about drilling a hole through the earth and how it takes 42 minutes to fall from one side to the other. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, it's Leo Pirate.
Hey, what's up? What's going on, Leo Pirate?
Sure, I know you have to head out soon, so I'll try to make this comment quick. But I had heard you mention Atlantis and the idea that what's the big model is like hiding what might be already seen. And like what might already be known, our metascriptors are basically trying to hide and obscure with alternate explanations. And from a spiritual perspective, I've discovered through syncretism so many of the things that are recorded in a religious text called the Bible, usually a holy book. It's always been obscured. And in my studies into Atlantis, I found out it's actually a New Age interpretation or a New Age representation of the biblical antediluvian world, which in the record, the Bible, has been completely submerged and is gone from the flood. We live above the antediluvian world if you take the record as it's reported. But it's interesting that the New Age perspective has so many parallels to what uncannily is described in Genesis chapter 5 and 6, but with a New Age perspective that completely expunges the record that's provided in the Bible, that it was full of people that were so terrible and essentially destroyed themselves. You had asked me before, like, isn't God kind of a sadist in the Bible, like to wipe out all of humanity with the flood. If you read Genesis chapter 5, you'll find a parallel to Atlantis. The people had become so awful. They were constantly murdering each other, and evil was on their mind continually. And it isn't the story of Atlantis that they had gotten so technologically advanced, they had essentially destroyed themselves?
Interesting. I recently I had spoken about James Cameron's movie Avatar 2: Way of Water and how the Na'vi in this movie are like Atlanteans and everything's about water. And the movie is really about Earthlings, humans, destroying the Earth because we're parasitic, warlike, terrible, disconnected from nature. We don't know it's sentient. We kill Gaia, and then we go take over their place. And around this time, there were riots in Atlanta because the police were building some kind of a training camp next to Atlanta. And this training grounds was occupied by a bunch of environmentalists. And they said, if you cut down these trees, Atlanta's going to flood. You see, you're going to piss off Gaia, like you're going to piss off God. You see the Gaia God flood story that has been appropriated.
Wow.
But the Atlanta Atlantis connection is what I'm pointing out here. They're making the parallel between the West and the Atlanteans who brought it all down.
And how often they use these homonyms and references to subconscious associations, like with Mark Ruffalo portraying Hulk, and then Hulk Hogan being at the RNC and also being very closely associated with Donald Trump. I also saw in the chat someone had mentioned, is it true that Mark Ruffalo is like suffers from TDS? It's a very similar situation
Yeah,
to
that's right. De
Robert De
Niro.
Niro. So again, even though on the world stage in the news, because these are Hollywood actors, when they're in the news giving interviews, they're still acting. I hope I'm not shaking anyone's perspective saying that. So them being assigned the role of being highly anti-Trump, it still subconsciously cements an association in your mind with their visual presence and Donald Trump, even if it's the exact opposite.
No, that's great. That's a great assessment because I haven't watched it yet. It's that I think it's called Zero Day, recent movie. De Niro. De Niro's basically playing Biden, and he's super Trump deranged. Then he plays Senator McLaughlin in Machete, who's a Trump guy, but he plays him in a negative light. So you're cheering for him to get shot. And so this Mark Ruffalo is playing Trump, where he's the villain. So these are intentional. They're world stage antics. Like the Joaquin Phoenix, before the Joker movie came out, he got arrested for his climate change protesting with Jane Fonda. And they had a big sign, Burning Globe, change the world, and he got arrested. So fighting capitalism, fighting the system. And then what happens in the Joker movie? It's class warfare. He's a Marxist class warrior, basically fighting the capitalist system. So yeah, you're definitely correct there that Mark Ruffalo connects to that for a very specific reason. And then the third
And,
Hulk connection, if you caught that one, was Harrison Ford becomes the Red Hulk.
oh yeah, that cements it. Like that's and for people who don't have the world stage perspective, if they're highly limited and they're only focusing on, say, Joaquin Phoenix, they can say, well, of course he was cast for that role. That's just his life's passion. If they think the portrayal of their life in the news and interviews is real, if they think that's like a genuine, organic, natural portrayal of an actor's life, they don't see that the actor's life extends beyond the silver screen or the stage. It's continued. Like the silver screen extends to your living room, to your phone. And it's funny you bring up Jane Fonda, but I just was thinking about that. You had posted that Barbarella clip that was from the 60s. I just found this out where she was floating around doing that striptease in space. That film in the United States was released the same day of the Apollo space mission. Uh,
Oh wow, that's
October
funny.
11th, 1968. Yeah. And as far as I can tell, there's in the works a Barbarella remake that's coming out. Yeah, I think sometime in the future, I think next year or so. So I'm like, wow, just really
That's
all of people really need to see.
that's predictive programming. I mean, you're at home, you're laughing, and that they're normalizing floating around in space with Jane Fonda. It's all about normalizing it. And you mentioned silver screen. That's interesting because silver in the occult world is associated with the lunar, the moon, and through Jungian symbolism, the subconscious,
The
the
subconscious.
dreaming mind. Whereas the solar, so the sun, moon, I think is the objective reality merging with the subjective. But interesting, the silver screen thing. But valid connections. And one more thing: Ruffalo, Green Hulk, anti-Trump. Harrison Ford playing Trump becomes the Red Hulk, like red MAGA, Luigi green. So there's some kind of color symbolism inherent in this as well.
Oh yeah, colors is very subconscious as well. But I'll let you get to your gig, and thanks for accepting my call. So
Yeah,
bye.
great info. Thank you. Yeah, this is all very intriguing and great points there. If Mark Ruffalo is Trump deranged, then it cements the fact that he's playing this anti-Trump role. Yeah, a deranged Trump hater happens to be. This is from 6 days ago, and of course, people will like the director of the film says, no, this is just a coincidence. They always say that it's just a coincidence. But how many coincidences until you can say it's not a coincidence? I mean, the 007's author Ian Fleming was like, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, three times is enemy action. Yeah, coincidentally, my nickname in college was. Oh, this is it. Okay, Breitbart News. Korean filmmaker Bong Joon-ho says his new film, Mickey 17, is not parroting Trump with its villain as Mark Ruffalo, but critics say allusions to the president are too enormous and too specific to deny. Apparently, he does a little dance. He's turned politics into a religious cult. He's all about his image on TV, big hair. I even saw a picture of him, one of the still shots. He has his hands out. Typical Trump gesture. So, no, obviously. Oh, then he gets shot at after talking about colonizing a planet, making it all white. And then a bullet grazes his cheek. And they're downplaying these as coincidences. The Perplexity.ai search said, this couldn't possibly be intentional. It's merely a coincidence. The AI cannot compute the idea that there's intentionality between the alignment that we see consistently connecting entertainment and future news events because its base assumption is that the news is real. So logically, you would have to conclude it must just be random. Tominoid says there's Kingpin in the new Daredevil series. Villain is being played by elected mayor by MAGA. I'll have to take a look because that's another thing too. In nearly every one of these movies, you can find the antagonist to the Trump character in some way represents Obama. And in 4 of the examples I could name, even the Red Hulk being opposed by Sidewinder. We're talking about an actor, Giancarlo Esposito, who plays this Sidewinder character who also plays the mayor in Megalopolis, the opposition to Trump. This is all interesting, too, because he's the Edgar, the CEO in The Boys, who opposes the Homelander. And the Homelander also had connections to the shooting. They had to change it. I mean, this is so repetitive. But I was looking at this other one, Man in Fool, where they obviously repurposed to be Trump, and it's the mayor who takes out the Trump character. A mayor from Chicago, definitely based on Obama. But in that movie, it's about Charlie Coker, and it's obviously Trump. But that name, I looked it up because I was trying to figure out more about this particular character. It's from another movie called The Italian Job from like the 60s. And I'm pretty sure Charlie Coker then is foreshadowing Trump now, just as they repurposed the Tom Wolfe Charlie Coker from his book from the late 90s to 2024 Trump. The actor from Full Metal Jacket, are you talking Matthew Modine? Matthew Modine is an interesting one in all of this. So this is all intriguing to me because he was Joker in Kubrick's film Full Metal Jacket, which was replete with references to the JFK assassination. JFK, like Joker, war photographer, that was his job. But he had the signature target on the side of his helmet. That movie, Full Metal Jacket, like other works by Kubrick, alludes to future fake events, including 9/11, by the way. Oh, Private Pile. Oh, Gomer Pyle. What a hilarious, iconic character. But yeah, to get back to Matthew Modine, because it does tie into this other stuff. So he's Joker, right? But he's also the mad scientist in Stranger Things, who is shot at the season finale. And of course, there's this overlapping connection between the theme of JFK getting shot and Joker. Reoccurring theme. Now, why is that? Well, it all ties in even to Batman and Trump's association with Batman and Batman's great grandfather having founded the Skull and Bones Society. There's a built in dialectic here with Batman and Joker. And we see it with the class warfare. Like Daniel Penny represents the Batman side, the vigilante fighting the bad guys in the subway. And then the Joker representing the underclass, class warfare, kill the rich. He'd be the Luigi. So the dialectic here is Batman Joker, but I think it actually ties in to, black, white, up, down. It's all about this duality for the most part. But Joker's the chaos agent. The sniper is the chaos agent. The guy who incites the revolution, who lights the fuse. The terrorist. Guy Fawkes, in particular, would be a good example of this. They rated Mickey 17 7.3 on IMDb. I could barely watch it. I wanted to see what happened to the Trump Ruffalo head. Dirk Zink. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, look, if you can go expose yourself to these memes and these movies, I mean, we are mind war inoculated. It's not going to affect us. But if you're willing to subject yourself to it for the benefit of the rest of us, I appreciate it. I took a few for the team. I watched Barbie. I watched Barbie when it came out. Like, I was one of the first ones there. I watched The Sound of Freedom, Flight Risk, and these are movies I wouldn't have watched if I didn't know for a fact they were going to contain predictive programming. I watched The Madness, knowing it would forecast the future, and as we've seen, the madness has come into fruition. We're just waiting for something to happen to Musk, but we've already had attempts. We've already had attacks on his company. Mickey 17 by the director who won Oscar 2020 Parasite. Okay, I'll have to take a look. Didn't he do 12 Monkeys? Parasite won Best Picture before the pandemic. Okay, let me take a look here. Movie Parasite by Bong Joon-ho. Here we go. Parasite. 2019 film. A black comedy. Let's see what it's about. Based on a play that he wrote in 2015. Okay, I'm going through this to see if there's a synopsis. I haven't seen it, but there's a number of 2019 movies I want to see. There's one called, I think it's called 5 Feet Apart. Yeah, 5 Feet Apart 2019. This one looks good. 5 Feet Apart 2019. It's about these two young patients with some immunocompromised condition, cystic fibrosis, and they want to have a relationship, but they're told, you have to stay 6 feet apart. So 5 feet apart represents how she's a conformist and he wants to break the rules and get closer. But this is 2019, about a couple in love, and they can't get more than 6 feet together, to close. This is like 2020 prep. Yeah, the name is very interesting in itself. Whether or not I'd have to watch the film, because sometimes it's in the subtext, sometimes it's overt, like the zombie movies. The real thing I think was to look. I think the zombie movies were there to condition the public to fear the anti-vaxxer. Bird Box that came out right before had the people with who won't wear the masks were the ones to be afraid of. Run from the people without the masks. Then they made it to quarantine at the end. Same thing with Hot Skulls. So yeah, these are all in the subtext, or sometimes they're overt. All right, we've been working our way through the notes here. Pete Truppa said, NASA SpaceX launched the crew into space to go rescue Barry, Butch Wilmore, and Suni Williams, he said. At 150, they switched to CGI, and he mentioned here, my friends noticed that it looks fake. And to our credit, Elon Musk has remarked several times that it looks like CGI. You know, normally they call you stupid or crazy because you say, hey, look, it looks fake. But Elon Musk here says, quote, looks like CGI. Looks like CGI. Musk he shares a photo of the Polaris space mission. So there you have it from Pope Elon himself. Looks like CGI. Now, I'm not MSM. I'm not a clickbaiter, so I'm going to read the whole quote here. But just to drive home the point, he agrees with the Infinite Plane Society. He agrees with auto hoaxers. He agrees with media skeptics. It looks like CGI, but it's real. Well, it is real. It's real CGI. It's a real simulation. So he's not really lying necessarily. But it looks like CGI, yeah, come on. It looks like CGI because it is CGI or because they're in space. A new documentary on Apple claims that Doors' Jim Morrison is alive and living in anonymity in Syracuse as a maintenance worker named Frank. I haven't looked into it, but I will. I'm still thinking it's Rush Limbaugh. Here's Elon Musk. You can see the ridiculous political puppet show for what it is. They're just actors reading a script. Yeah, everybody but you and Trump. One more thing. Bong, Joon Ho, Mickey 17, prophecy or coincidence. It would be easy to dismiss it as coincidence or art, unintentionally imitating life. But Bong has always been attuned to the zeitgeist. In Parasite, he explored class tensions that resonated globally. Now, with Mickey 17, he has tapped into something equally timely. So, what's more likely here? That predictive programming can be explained by directors and writers who are tapped into the zeitgeist, who are picking up vibes from the sim. I had some simulation theorists tell me that, no, you're wrong. Man couldn't do this. This is beyond the capacity of man to lie to other people en masse through propaganda. I mean, come on. What propaganda was invented for this? But simulation theorists have tried to tell me that, no, this is a pattern in the matrix that artists are picking up on. So you're telling me what they're really saying in this explanation is that Hollywood directors are somehow, left-wing liberal Hollywood directors are channeling God, the universe, and putting it into movies. Like, I refuse to accept that these Hollywood directors are some kind of divine prophets or conduits to a higher power and are therefore giving us mystical revelation. Like, I'm not on that. I reject that notion. But that is your claim if you're a simulation theorist. And if you think predictive programming is not the result of the same people who engineer the psyops, if you think it's somehow like separate, I mean, these are different departments, but it's part of the same operation, part of the same mass mind control religion. And if you're still on team sim theory, Mandela, synchromysticism, your explanation is, wildly inadequate at this point, and this should expose it here. Unless you want to say that, yeah, indeed, these guys are attuned to the zeitgeist. Yeah, they are. But who do you think writes the zeitgeist? The zeitgeist is written by those who are faking the news. The zeitgeist, as the spirit of the age, it's defined by the power elite. It is their worldview monopoly. Alfred Yinglet says, today I'm the most 33 I'll ever be in my life, to be precise, in 1 hour from now. Well, happy birthday, and you should probably be quarantined for the entire year. Like, 33-year-olds represent a disproportionate amount of shit disturbers on the world stage. Like, that's when they fly into buildings, start revolutions, start big religions, mass movements, take over the headlines. There was something else. Oh, in Interview with the Vampire. The vampire becomes a vampire at 33. Just came across that yesterday. I was watching it. So we talked about the Red Hulk, Green Hulk stuff. Very intriguing. The overlapping connections to the president and the assassination attempt. The the references to JFK. And then here you have it, Wario and Luigi. And think too, this was before Musk became the villain that he is right now. It's foreshadowing. There's no other way to explain it. This is foreshadowing of his world stage persona, and it really became clear to me with the madness what his role was going to be, and we have predicted it accurately since. Joe says Trump looks more like a guy in a mask every day. Yeah, it's interesting to think about because it's totally possible and it makes a lot of sense if we're under a system where we're told it's this way, but it's really just a show. And you couldn't have something unplanned happen if his historic role is to do these things and live this long. So they have to have contingencies. The show must go on, even if they have to replace somebody. So it wouldn't shock me at all. And they all do look kind of masky to me. It's like if he had a crown and he was a king and they were more authoritarian, people would fight. So they get rid of the crown, give him a rubber mask, make him look like just a normal person. All right, this has been great. We'll continue this tomorrow. I'll have some updates on the coloring book. Again, the coloring book is called Auto Hoax It, Meditations on Media Fakery. The television screen has become the retina of the mind's eye. Brian Oblivion. And you can get the PDF at the shop if you want to print out your own pages, or you can wait for a couple of days. It'll show up on Amazon. But as you can see here, I have some images. You have, for example, Kubrick at the Towers, dancing nurses. We've got dancing nurses dancing under giant syringes. We've got clowns on TV, laughing, crying, actors, everything you would expect. And then on the left page, on the even pages, you have a lot of quotes. History is a set of lies agreed upon. Life imitates art more than art imitates life. All the world's a stage. A bunch of stuff from Edward Bernays and Christoph, Morpheus, and many others. So I think you'll all find this very interesting. So if you get the PDF, you can read it. Yeah, Jamarian May. Yes, you're the one. It's your fault. You're the reason we're late tonight. You suggested I do a coloring book, and I've had experience with it, and I thought, let's see what I can pull off with AI and Canva. And I even got all the quotes. I went to Perplexity, and I'm like, give me all the best quotes on media manipulation from Edward Bernays, Goebbels, and I just Mark Twain, etc. But yeah, I appreciate the suggestion. So this book hopefully goes viral, but I do think it'll have widespread appeal. These coloring books are, it's for it's therapeutic. Seattle gets nuked, some terror attack, everyone else is freaking out. You can get your crayons out, get your coloring book, and color some crisis actors. Okay, this is Chief Crow, Auto Hoax, or GTFO. Yes, Dirk Zink, Trump and Musk are really driving people crazy. Yeah, mainstream media fundamentalists. It's fundamentalism.